We all try to bury memories we'd rather forget. Those embarrassments with our crush, those awkward moments with strangers. But sometimes, the mind can bury something far worse so deep in your head you forgot it even happened. In 1987, a man spots an alien while hiking. His encounter would shock the entire nation. But it was what he discovered after hypnosis that would reveal the unfathomable things the alien did to his body. W101.3, I'm Hans, and welcome back to my Holo, guys. We broadcast unsolved cold cases, disturbing history, and encounters that just never find explanation. So if that's your kind of show, subscribe to our Supernatural Holo because we air every Wednesday. Tonight, we're talking about the Ilkley Moor incident. It's one of Great Britain's most iconic alien abduction stories, when hypnosis was the key to finding out the truth of what happened that day. Stay with us. The British Isles is home to some of the most eerie and foggiest lands in the world. But the place that stands out to me is the mountains of Ilkley Moor. It has a way of warping perspective. Distances stretch when fog creeps up, making familiar paths lose their edges, and time hard to tell. But Philip Spencer knew the moor like the back of his hand. Retired from the police, he was a methodical man who built a routine of early morning walks. Honestly, the path was second nature at this point, considering he had walked it countless times before. But none of that could have prepared him for what would become one of the most debated UFO encounters in Britain. It starts with the humming, like what you'd hear from the back of a fridge, except it's steady and directional. Spencer freezes and scans the mist ahead, and that's when he sees it. There, standing alone and partially shrouded in fog, is a 4 feet tall figure with greenish skin. Its posture isn't defensive like an animal's, Spencer thought. It doesn't run, it doesn't flinch. Instead, it just stands there, looking right back at Spencer. But Spencer doesn't panic. He's more curious than anything. Instead, he reacts the way he always does, logically, and reaches for his camera. He raises it up, frames the shot, and click. But that's when the figure lifts its arm, not in a threatening way, but at that moment, Spencer could immediately tell this was no animal. To him, it's almost like the figure is quietly warning him to stop. The motion it was making was deliberate and almost instructional. Then it lowers its arm, turns, and walks away, vanishing into the mist. But Spencer wasn't gonna let it escape. He follows it through the brush. The terrain is uneven and visibility is super low. Whatever he had just seen was already blending into the moor. But as he gets into a clearing, he stops and peers across. Resting in front of him is a large disc-shaped domed craft. Its walls are metallic, without flashing lights. There's no whirring engines, but before he could snap another picture, the craft simply lifts straight up, hovers for a beat, and then vanishes into the low cloud cover. The humming disappears with it, and Spencer is all alone again. He decides to continue his walk. Shaken, yes, but he's functional. He assumes, he'll process what he just saw the morning after. But it wasn't until he checks his watch that something truly unsettles him. Because nearly 90 minutes have passed by. The math didn't add up. This walk so far should have taken far less time, even with the encounter included. But there was no blackout or fading. It was just gone. And then there's the compass. Spencer always carries one out of habit, which you can blame on his police days. But that morning, the needle refuses to behave. It points south instead of north, and it doesn't just do that once or twice, but over repeated checks throughout that time. When he gets back, he develops the photograph. In the 1980s, photographs were grainy, especially in low light. Yet unmistakably, a small humanoid figure is seen standing in the photo. The proportions are way wrong for a human. As you can see in this picture, the limbs seem way too long and the skin just way too green. Even though the facial details are kind of fuzzy, Spencer can tell the silhouette is not from this planet. Now, I want to note here that after his encounter, Spencer didn't publicize his own story. Instead of going to the newspapers, he immediately contacts UFO researcher Jenny Randles with a detailed account of what he had just seen and photographed. During that time, Spencer narrates his experience in a letter, which then led to researchers to visiting the site and examining the photo he took. The first broadcast of Spencer's encounter was through UFO press media, and then mainstream British media jumped on it, sharing it further. Now, sure enough, skeptics fire up immediately. Hoax? Possible. But how? Animal? Human in the distance? Neither fit convincingly. Later computer enhancements teased out pointed ears, large eyes, but each iteration added interpretation as much as detail. Kodak, the camera company, even confirmed the photo was untouched. No double exposure or manipulation. Whatever Spencer had photographed was real, or at least happened in real time. This proved Spencer had seen something, but it didn't explain what that something was or what happened during those missing 90 minutes. Now, at this point, the public is begging for more information from Spencer, but honest to God, Spencer doesn't remember anything else from the case. Well, nothing consciously. You see, Spencer says he's been having strange, vivid dreams of astral imagery, or quote, starry dreams, as he put it. That's when someone close to Spencer suggests he tries hypnosis to find out what those dreams could mean, and maybe what happened in those missing 90 minutes from that day. Why not? He thought. But once he tries it, his discovery of what the aliens did to him and the Ilkley Moor incident would never be the same. It's now March 1988, a few months after his encounter. A clinical psychologist named Dr. Jim Singleton guides the session, while UFO investigators Peter Hugh and Arthur Tomlinson watch quietly. Spencer reclines in the seat, closes his eyes, and opens his mind. At first, the session is slow. Spencer recounts the familiar walk across the moor, the figure, the photograph he took, the humming from the craft. But then something shifts. Under hypnosis, the details of the missing time begin to surface. As soon as he raises the camera, he describes his body being paralyzed. Not frozen in fear exactly, but more like his body decides to obey some external command he doesn't understand. He describes the sudden loss of bodily control, and then he is lifted off the ground, up in the air. His body felt rigid and heavy at the same time, as though he were locked in place, unable to move his arms or legs. His vision begins to blur, and the surrounding landscape seems to lose sharpness, almost as if the world itself was dimming or, quote, switching modes, end quote. He then describes the sensation of being lifted upward and into the craft itself. Not violently, but smoothly and effortlessly. There's no feeling of being grabbed. Instead, he felt suspended, weightless, as if gravity no longer applied. Then he says there's this strong internal sense that resistance is impossible. Not because of force, but because his will feels overwritten. But the trance has just begun. Spencer then finds himself inside this enclosed space. He didn't describe traditional doors or machinery. In fact, he says the interior is featureless, smooth, softly lit. There's no visible seams or controls. The lighting doesn't appear to come from lamps, but seems to just emanate from the surfaces themselves. Standing among them was the single figure he remembered taking a photo of consciously. And just like the figure, these entities are small, with greenish skin, large dark eyes, and thin limbs. They don't speak a language, but instead communicate via telepathy directly into his mind, conveying reassurance and letting him know to just stay calm or, quote, don't be afraid. Just then, they tell Spencer he's gonna have a medical examination. He recalls lying flat while the beings work around him. They start using these instruments on his nose and mouth, and he describes a probing sensation. Again, he's emphasizing that it was not painful, but deeply unsettling. The experience felt really clinical. It felt detached and really methodical. No sense of emotion from the beings themselves. Now, one of the most striking elements of this hypnotic recall is what follows after the examination. They sit Spencer back up and show him these moving images, kind of like films or projections. These images depicted catastrophic events on Earth. Spencer saw large-scale flooding, these incredibly desolate famines, environmental collapse, and scenes resembling nuclear devastation. From these, Spencer can only interpret these images are possible futures or warnings of Earth, though the aliens don't ever explicitly tell him what they mean. Spencer is then shown the second sequence of images, but as he's describing it, he stops talking. When they ask him why he's pausing, he says he is not allowed to consciously remember or disclose what he saw. And as his pause grows longer, the psychologist can see Spencer becoming hesitant and distressed when pausing and really trying to describe this portion, insisting that the aliens told him it was, quote, not for humans to know, not for now, end quote. Finally, the aliens return him back to the Moor. He describes being lowered gently back onto the ground, regaining his bodily control, and then suddenly becoming aware of his surroundings again. In this version of events, it is after this return that he takes the famous photograph of the figure, not before, suggesting the photo was captured at the tail end of a much longer encounter than he initially believed. It's safe to say that this hypnosis transforms the incident from a brief sighting into a full abduction scenario, accounting for the missing time and the strange dreams that follow. It's also the point where skepticism intensifies. Critics then argue the regression added culturally familiar abduction imagery that wasn't present in Spencer's first account. Every detail he had missed before, every gap he felt in his own recollection had been filled. But the more complete the memory, the stranger it becomes. Spencer is adamant about one thing. He never reported pain. He didn't have burn marks or scratches. Nothing in his body reflected the trauma of what he claimed to have experienced. And yet the psychic residue lingers. The unease, the certainty that what he had seen and felt wasn't something the human mind should normally contain. Now, skeptics are quick to point out the obvious. Hypnotic regression is unreliable. Memories recovered this way can be influenced, exaggerated, even fabricated without the subject realizing it. And the risk of confabulation is high. And yet, for Spencer, the memory doesn't feel artificial. It undeniably feels real to him, and he has never once retracted what he saw. Now, the compass remains a mystery. As you might recall, the compass changed direction, pointing to the south instead of the north. Physicists later verified that its polarity indeed had actually reversed. Of course, they have their scientific reasons, but it's safe to say that that is extremely rare for a compass to do that. And the photograph, well, remains to this day open to interpretation. Even though it's kind of grainy, it is authentic and we can verify it wasn't tampered with. The missing time had a narrative now, but whether that narrative was literal or symbolic, true or invented, that's impossible to know. And that's the tension with the Ilkley Moor incident. It's a story built on fact and interpretation. Did Spencer truly step aboard the craft and witness alien beings? Or did the mind fill the gaps in the only way it knew how? Through images and patterns from the human culture around him. The hypnotic memories are compelling, I have to say. They're super vivid and very disturbing. They bring the Moor to life in ways I don't think that photograph could ever. This whole incident is almost like Ilkley Moor itself, where the mist and fog still drape the hills today, hiding the truth behind thick, dense clouds, almost like brain fog. That's all for this week's story, but let me know what you truly believe happened down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Till next time, have a horrible sleep.